Hello, and welcome back to Magical Journey. I'm your host, Daniel Cahoon. And before we get started with today's show, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, direct you guys to a couple of places. Number one, and most important of all, is magicaljourney.com, where you can find all of your magical journey needs. You can find all my links to social media on there. I've recently added the addition of my LinkTree, so you've got everything, all the social media, including X and Tumblr, and all of those that I post on a daily and weekly basis. I do want to kind of direct you to the Facebook group, though, for Magical Journey, where we post all of the updated shows that are coming on. There Tuesday, Thursday, and the Friday show. A lot going on there, I know. We also have supplemental material depending on what topics I'm covering. Right now, I'm focusing a lot of energy on the Trini Gibson case, which will be airing an interview with Laura Risti about the Trini Gibson case, not this week, but next week. There is a lot of good stuff going on here now. Also, don't forget, this is where you can pick up your magical merch and become my walking, talking billboard to get the word out there about me. And also, please, I know it is not for everybody, but I do have a Patreon, and I really appreciate any support that you are willing to give on the Patreon. I do offer a lot of behind the scenes and other information, other content that you can't find anyplace else on there. Currently, I'm working on stuff related to the Paranormal Files episode of the Amityville Horror. Soon, we'll be working on the one from this past post. I believe that was file number 9, the possession, file 10, the possession. You can also find live chats and Q&As and all kinds of other good stuff on there. Okay, so today I'm excited because I have somebody from the Houston, Texas area coming on today to talk to us. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that area, but like Houston is just a place. It's the place to be. It's the place to go. It is a place to talk about the paranormal. So today I want you to welcome with me Jon Strohbehn to the stage.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how are you doing,
Daniel?
Thank you for being on. So, Jon, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your social media and so forth, and give us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. Well, I've been involved with the paranormal, had paranormal things happening throughout my life. So I have had a lifetime of experience with the paranormal. I'm 79 years old. I spent 10 years as a rescue captain in the fire department. I was injured in an explosion and burned my lungs, so I had to get out. I'm currently retired, and so I have started my own 501c3 nonprofit, which is Paranormal Houston Investigations. And I'm funding that on my Social Security check, which isn't easy. And we're enjoying ourselves as we're learning more about the paranormal. And we've been trying to do videos about educating people. That's what our 501c3 is about, is educating people about the paranormal world around them, what's going on. And we're taking different topics. Now, we've had 110 topics so far that we've posted. We've got more ready to post as we explore different areas. And our podcast is called Exploring the supernatural on YouTube. On Facebook, it's Paranormal Houston Investigations. We also post daily a term of the day, a paranormal term of the day. We have over 400 terms right now, so it takes over a year in trying to find investigators. So we decided that it was a good idea to train our own investigators the way we wanted things done, and that way it doesn't matter who does what test or what uh, that we do. It's going to be done the same, and the results should be the same. So we started teaching some students at years ago. I think it was back in 2008 at a place called Leisure Learning. And we had developed a program where we would train people at Leisure Learning. And that's when we started our term of the day from that, because in the vocabulary, we've all got to speak the same language to be able to communicate with each other. Or, if I'm talking apples, you're talking oranges, we're not going to communicate very well. We're going to miscommunicate a lot. And at 400 terms, if you sat down and tried to learn 400 terms, you'd go to sleep. At least I would. I wouldn't want to sit down and dedicate myself to learning that many terms, And occasionally I throw one in that's funny. But anyway, that's how we got started with the term of the day. I thought it was easier for a person to learn vocabulary, so we all talk the same language. So I've got that kind of as a leader to our page. And of course, our term of the day is posted on your site too. Pamela transfers it. We got into trouble with Facebook. Facebook says we were spamming. And so we've asked everybody if they want our term of the day on their site to come pick it up, please, because I don't want to get my hand slapped anymore. And so they're restricting my access on Facebook. So that's not very pleasant. We also have our website, paranormalhouston.org, which .org is for organizations that are nonprofits for the most part. So we are a legitimate IRS certified 501c3 nonprofit. Any donations to us are all tax deductible. And if you feel or are so inclined to make a donation to us, we will spend your money wisely trying to improve our videos and getting new equipment. There are a lot of things we would like to explore that honestly we can't afford. And we would love to be able to afford it. And we're looking for grants. Got any suggestions on grants? We'd love that too. So that's pretty much our situation, Daniel.
Wow. Yeah, I got to tell you, I love the terms of the day. I love that Pam posts those on the group because they're very informative. Sometimes, like you said, they're kind of funny. But it's also, it gives you some food for thought sometimes too. And I like that. I really like that. So with being a not-for-profit organization, so you actually go in and you train and help people to kind of get a bearing on how to investigate and how to go about doing some of the work that in the paranormal that needs to be done these days.
Yes. And if there's somebody that has a haunting and they're wanting to know how to handle it, we had one guy contact us that wanted to do it himself. And so he's been using our instructional videos on how to go about it. He didn't know how to go about collecting EVPs, and he didn't know how to go about editing them, things like that. So that's mainly why he had contacted us. And quite frankly, we were happy to help him because he's in one of the most haunted locations in our county.
Wow.
It's actually roughly a subdivision that's built on top of a cemetery.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, why do they do that?
In fact, the movie Poltergeist was based on a house that was in that subdivision.
Oh, wow. That, yeah. That movie kind of gave me the willies. I'm sorry. The scariest character in all of horror history is that old guy that's like he just no. Um, roughly how many people do you have at a time coming through seeking training from you?
Well, we haven't done a in-person class in some time. We stopped doing that back before COVID, when
Mhm.
COVID happened. And so I am prepared to do them online, and I am of the I'm if I'm wanting to help somebody, I will do a single person. I don't have to have a class of a lot of people to do it. I don't mind doing it for one person because I know if there's a need, there's a need. I'm trying to get set up where we'll have an online class that they can pay for and take any time and then they can send us questions and stuff. But right now it's done virtually in person with me.
Yeah, the online class sounds like a really good idea, actually, where you can go on and purchase the class and the material and just be able to work through it at your own pace and so
Yeah.
forth. I like that idea.
And when you complete it, you get a certificate of completion. And
Right,
I'd certainly
right.
welcome you to my team. Now, when we were doing this back from Leisure Learning, that was an adult education center, we
Mhm.
actually would rent a classroom from them. It would go in their catalog as a paranormal class, and they would fill the class for us. We normally had 6 to 10 people, maybe 15. And we would take a weekend and go to a cemetery and camp out there. We had a cemetery, well, we still have that cemetery, that is got some Civil War soldiers in it buried. It's a cemetery that had fallen in disrepair, and we restored it.
Mm.
We got a state historical marker put on the cemetery. The state didn't want to say a paranormal group did the work, so they said some volunteers from Houston, Texas, you know, restored the cemetery because they didn't want to have anything to do with paranormal, or the suggestion of it, which we got a laugh out of at the time. Now it's been some years; it's been almost 10 years or more, maybe 15. And it's not so funny to us anymore. I mean, it's starting to get ridiculous and ride on us a little bit. In Texas, the cemeteries are covered by the Texas Historic Commission, which
Mm.
also take care of like the Alamo and the Sandstone Battleground and historic sites like that. And a lot of times
Wow.
we get a little static from some of those people, but I see that they're starting to look for paranormal investigators to help in some of their locations, which is a turnaround for them. So I'm hoping that things are on the change here.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Because I noticed that's one of the things that, like, I don't understand, like, when people try to distance themselves when you say the word paranormal or um, you any of the things that go under the paranormal genre. They're like, oh yeah, we no, we don't want to talk that. Um, there's places like Franklin, Tennessee, that are owned by people who are historical, minded people and so forth, that they'll do historical tours of the property and so forth, but they will literally refuse to allow people to discuss the paranormal aspect on the grounds. And I'm just like, wow, really? Because this is a big draw.
Yeah,
This is this is the thing that brings people in sometimes,
yeah, it is. Mhm.
It really is. So let's talk for a minute about some of the cases that you have dealt with there in your area, because honestly, I mean, you guys got a big town there.
We got a big state.
Everything there is oversized,
Yeah.
right? So what are some of the cases that you've dealt with that kind of stick out to you?
Well, some of them that are kind of interesting, I suppose. We had one at a hotel in Schulenburg that was very interesting. We had one at the down in Wharton, Texas, at what is called the Egypt Plantation or the Northington Plantation. It's actually Bud Northington is the owner of it. They have a museum there, and we did a couple of investigations down there. We enjoy going down there. Bud kind of shut it down during COVID. He has not reopened. He's an elderly gentleman like myself, and he doesn't want to get sick, by having people come in that might be contaminated. So I haven't talked to him here lately. He did send me about a year ago or 2 years ago, asking that I come down and see him, and I just haven't had the opportunity to go to Wharton to chat with him. But I would love to go there. He actually has Civil War uniforms there. That plantation was established before Texas was a state. And in 1836, when Santa Anna was chasing Sam Houston, they passed within about a mile and a half of that plantation, and they did not see the plantation, and actually Sam Houston didn't see it either, or he'd have burned it to the ground so that the Mexicans couldn't get any supplies from it, But the Mexicans missed it, and it survived the battle for Texas independence. So it lived through that, and then it went through the Civil War, and they do have Civil War uniforms there. Some of their family members were in the Civil War. They have a sword and a musket and the hats and the pistol belt and all that. And we've actually, in one of the slave quarters there, we happened to go on Black History Month when the University of Houston was doing a Black History Month video, and we just happened to be there on the afternoon that they were completing it. And the black lady that was there was actually a descendant of slaves that lived there. And she had the collars that the slaves wore, the chains, and the ankle chains and stuff like that. And Bud had a cottage there that is still there that was a slave cabin. And so we set up in that slave cabin with some cameras running, and we got some orbs going around the room. We also had a black hand pass. It looks like a black hand in front of one of our investigators. You see a black thing coming down in one picture, and then the next it's across her chest, and it's a hand with a finger pointing. And so we got quite a bit of evidence there. We would certainly love to go back there sometime and do more investigations.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of some others. Old Town Spring is close by. We had some good investigations there. Galveston is 60 miles to the south of us, 45 maybe. And we had 350 people in our group at that time. It's a little hard to find things for 350 people to do on an investigation, but believe me, we rented the Tremont House Hotel. And we had some experiences there that would blow your socks off. And actually, they worked with the Hotel Galvez. They got a bus, then they transported us back and forth between the two hotels. And we were allowed to do paranormal investigations at both hotels. They were owned by the same people at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So that was a nice effort that they had, and they made it very special for us. We had another investigation. At the time, I had a gal living with me by the name of Siobhan, and her husband had passed away 5 years before. So on one of the investigations in Livingston, Texas, she was outside taking some pictures, and a mist started to form everywhere. And all of a sudden, a ectomist formed of a profile of a head. We determined that was her husband's head. She had a picture that was almost that same profile shot, except it was a picture of him, and the other was a mist. So we've got to. In fact, that one mist is on my personal Facebook page right now. At one point, she was talking about at that time he had been dead for 5 years. And so she kept saying under her breath once in a while, I just wish I could have talked to him one last time. So we got our buddy Chris Moon to get on Skype with us, and we did a long, hour-long EVP session on his telephone to the dead. She talked with her husband. She was very impressed. And actually, we had a lot of things happen during that talk, and it was a very emotional event. So those are a number of the better things that we have had done.
Wow. That's incredible, actually. Yeah. I find some of the EVP sessions to be very interesting sometimes. I was just telling somebody about I lived about less than a mile from the Hermitage at one point here in the Nashville metro area, and I was doing a ritual to um, prepare some iron railroad tie stakes to go into my yard, and they were still staying on my altar, kind of doing their thing. And I decided to open up and start doing a session. And the very first thing that came out was ritual. And I went, this is going to be an interesting day. Very interesting day. And yeah, so they can be very interesting sometimes. I've seen a lot of really good evidence from people who do investigation. What is some of the equipment you guys use when you're out working?
Well, we've used some. Oh gosh. Well, first off, we've got thermal cameras. We've got a CCTV system, a 12 camera system. We've got a couple of the 4K video cameras that we can set up. We've got a DJI Mavic Pro 3 drone. We've got an H4n Zoom recorder. We've got a cart full of stuff. And of course, I'm pretty good with dowsing rods. Of course, we have walkie-talkies. We have the ghost meter. We have the tri-field. We have both the digital and the analog tri-field meters. We have, God, I can't think of the name of the box that's tall with the antenna and the little stand that stands up.
The REM pod.
It's got a REM pod built into it, but it's another meter that, God, it was one of the first things I bought a long time ago. And one of them's 15 years old now, and one of them's about 5 years old. So, God, the name of it is escaping me right now. But anyway, we have essentially all the instruments. In fact, I just picked my reel-to-reel recorder back up out of storage. We're going to be looking at going back to some and comparing tape to digital on some of our experiments and see if we have some differences there. We're doing the same on video. We're looking at going back to some of the video cassette type recorders, the high eights, and as opposed to the digitals now too. And we still have a bunch of those old high 8 Sony cameras.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that, because modern day technology is a really fun thing to a point, but, I feel like it all has a drawback somehow. Do you find that the modern digital stuff, is it better than the older equipment, or do you find that like using actual film and tape and so forth to be a better option?
Well, I've heard of cases. I haven't seen one myself. I've heard of a case where actually a recording was made on a videotape that had never come out of the wrapper. They opened it out of the wrapper, and it already we believe that from the talk with the people that had it happen, if their story is correct, that electromagnetic force imprinted the tape. It's electromagnetic tape. It's how the recorded tapes go. So we're believing that electromagnetic field is what put the exposure on this tape. But anyway, it was a tape with a video of some ghost activity on it. So that being the case, we'd like to capture some ourselves. And so that's why we're considering these and taking these steps.
Wow. Because I know at one time, when cell phones and so forth really first started becoming a thing, a lot of the investigators were saying, nothing is going to capture images and so forth like actual film, and having that camera in hand and so forth, that actually taking pictures, and I find, because now, of course, with AI, every time somebody posts a picture on anything, I'm sure you've seen this 100 times a day. Everybody's like, oh, that's fake, that's AI, that's fake, it's AI. It's like, and they have done a lot of work to debunk a lot of things that we used to, think of as legitimate evidence, like the brown lady photo. As recently in recent years, people have debunked it or tried to. Um, and then, of course, there's the famous picture in Bachelor's Grove of the lady sitting on the tombstone. I don't know if you've seen that one or not. It appeared in the Chicago Sun-Times years ago.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. But it's still, and I think it was actually taken in the daytime, if I remember right. That was one of the things that was so amazing about it, was the clarity of the shot and the amount of light that was involved in it. But yeah, there's a lot of, anymore, you can take a picture of a doorknob and somebody will swear it's an AI.
Yeah, I know. But that's one of the things I have pointed out to our group. And I talk to anybody that wants to listen to me about it, is that a lot of times people are going to criticize you one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And the best thing you've got is, if you're with a team, when you've taken the pictures, you've all viewed the pictures on the scene, mm-hmm. you all know what really happened. And no matter what anybody else says, that's a legitimate picture. And you can take that to the bank for yourself, mm-hmm. because you're doing these investigations for yourself. Now, in some cases, we're trying to share this information with other groups. We hope that they believe us. We hope that our reputations are good, that we don't have any flaws in our reputation that cause people to doubt what we say or to, question how we do things. So that is an important part of your group. If you start faking things, you're gone. Forget it. You better form a new group. Do something else, because you have no value to other people in the paranormal,
right.
Except that you're having fun while you do it. And of course, some people just do some of these things for fun anyway. Mm-hmm. to their paradigms or parages or whatever, and they're making fun of people doing some of this stuff. So mm-hmm. you got to take that with a grain of salt too. But like us, when we do a video or a picture, like the one that I was talking about with Siobhan's husband, where it's the ectomist, we had a person with her at the time the picture was taken. They came in, showed us the picture. We went outside in the mist. We took more pictures. We got pictures of mist coming and going, and actually we got a ghost cat and a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Wow.
But we're all witnesses. We saw those. We all attested, these were captured there. They were done, nobody took anything home and edited it because they didn't get a chance, So if your group has got a procedure that's in place, you have to do something like the CSI people do. You have to have a chain of custody. Mm-hmm. You have to have control of the pictures and stuff. And so if you collect those before anybody goes home, that's the beauty of the digital, is that you can collect them before somebody goes home. If you're looking at film type, then it's got to be sent for processing. And technically, right there, you lose the chain of custody because you send it off and it comes back and you don't know how the lab screwed up.
Right.
And not only that, it's expensive. Film is expensive. So unless you're into developing this stuff yourself and maintain a chain of custody, there are always going to be issues with other people saying something about your pictures. That's just how it is. Those are words from Jon.
Right. Yeah, recordings, anything that any evidence you gather, there's always a skeptic, or always that person who's like, yeah, but, okay. What is what's some of the evidence that you've collected that made you go, wow?
Well, one of them was that Skype call, like I was telling
Mhm.
you about, to Steve
Yeah.
Ewan, Siobhan's husband that had passed. Now, he gave us some information on that video, attesting that God and Jesus were real, that he saw them. And of course, Siobhan's reactions on there are, that's his voice, you know. And she started crying, and the reactions and everything, you know that she recognized her husband's voice, you know. And
Mm.
while Chris was sitting there looking at us, we were on a Skype call, just like you and I are doing right now on Steam, whatever, SteamYard, yeah. But Chris was talking to us, and Chris is pretty psychic. And he said, he's right behind you. He's standing right behind you right now. Now, the part of the thing that really put icing on the cake for me was, before we started, I had told Siobhan this time was going to go real fast. It goes faster than you think. So you need to write down all the questions that you want to ask him on a
Mhm.
tablet. So she got an 8.5 legal size tablet and wrote down questions. She must have had it 3/4 of the way full of questions.
Wow.
We're getting close to the end of the session that I had, agreed upon with Krista time wise. I'm saying, Siobhan, you got to start asking these questions. And she says, didn't you hear Chris? He's standing behind us. He's going down the list. So we didn't have to ask a question.
Wow.
He was reading the list and answering. And so how's that grab you?
Wow. Are you kidding? Like he was
How,
literally
how
just
would you fake that? I mean, Chris can't even see the tablet on our side. There's no faking that.
no, no. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like there's so much evidence out there that would be really freaking hard to it's
Yeah.
like one of
It's like
the
UFOs. People are seeing them and they're swearing to it, and they're being, and everybody's denied it since 1947,
yeah,
and
of
they've
course there's
probably been
no
here longer than that.
yeah, it's like you know, developing hope projects just to debunk every single aspect, calling UFOs Venus and swamp gas and all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff.
Weather balloons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no such thing as UFOs. Ah, but we have evidence.
Yeah.
And now they're going on television, with all uh, these inquisitions, almost is what I call them. Uh, and people are sitting there watching it, going, "Well, that's nice. We already knew this." And so yeah, it's you, you, the amount of things that happens is like, I know a guy who does a lot of photography and so forth of stuff that manifests around him, and he gets a lot of manifestations. One of the things that he's discovered, and you can clearly see it in some of the photographs, is it'll look like an image of one being or one entity,
Mm-hmm.
but in reality, it's several joining together to create one image. I've seen that in several photos he's taken. There's another thing where we call it the ripple effect, where it looks like when somebody throws a rock in the water,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like that in midair,
Oh, wow.
and this ripple effect is something trying to come through,
Mm-hmm.
like
It's
almost like
clearly
a
a portal.
portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and if you set your camera to take consecutive photos one right after another,
Right.
like that,
Absolutely. It's
um,
important. Mm-hmm.
you get like a progression of the manifestation happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, he has some amazing stuff that he's got on his TikTok site, that of photos that he's taken over the years. It's really very hard to argue with. and then he actually has a video where they were working on with a cat ball, him and his mom, and the spirit moved the cat ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, physically moved it, made it.
I've seen it happen a number of times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's very interesting to me the amount of evidence there is to support the idea of hauntings or people manifesting in spirit and so forth. That session you're talking about is just mind-blowing to me. Especially the fact that, like you said, he was going down the list of questions and answering them without asking them even. It's like, how do you know?
He had to be standing behind us, just like Chris said. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I got another one that'll blow your mind. When I told you that we had rented the Tremont House in Galveston, one of the events that happened, we were across the street. They had a reception center there where they sometimes hold wedding receptions. So that's where we did a Ghost Hunter University over there at that facility. And after that was over, and after we had dinner, we went on a ghost hunt through the rest of the facility there. And one of our investigators was picked up, thrown to the ground by a spirit, and was being choked. And we're all standing there watching, paralyzed, and actually, to be honest with you, it was my daughter. I'm looking at my daughter struggling with something, wrestling with something. She was in the Marine Corps, so, she really ought to be able to handle most anything herself.
Right.
And I'm looking at it, and I wasn't prepared for this to happen. And now I know what to do, that I need to cast it out in the name of Jesus Christ, and get rid of it. But at the time, my thought was grab it, and yank it off of her like it was a person. But I couldn't see it. And so I'm sitting there frozen. What do I do? I can't grab it. I can't see it. I was at a total loss, but there were a number of witnesses to that event too. So.
Wow. That had to be traumatizing.
You'd say the least. But it was a good lesson. It was a good lesson.
You brought up a very important point. And I've heard people who are very agnostic admit that they know for a fact that there is power in the name of Jesus over these things. Yeah. And I find that very interesting, because even Scott Carpenter invoked the name of Jesus in protecting his property from Sasquatch because they were starting to come on his property. And, and he was like, I can't have these things hanging out at my house. Not good house guest.
Yeah.
And so he went to the four corners of his property and invoked the name of Jesus to protect his house and his family. I think it's very interesting that, like I said, even the agnostics acknowledge the power of the name of Christ, and accept that as, way. And of course you can, like we've been talking for the last couple of days on one of the Facebook groups about different things that you can do, protection wise, using herbs and crystals. And, there's the old Appalachian red brick dust and salt,
sweet grass, sage. Now, actually, according to Sean Glenn, I don't know if you've seen any of the Sean Glenn things. Yeah, I saw one of his today that he says sage just kind of temporarily gets rid of them and kind of pisses them off. And when they come back, they're really unhappy, and they get, but to use the sweet grass and the cedar. So, I will take him at his word. I haven't had that problem, but we'll see.
Right. deal will work too.
Okay.
To it that does a lot in the way of warding off negative energy and negative spirits. Have you had any? I mean, obviously, the experience you were just talking about with, something coming at your daughter was pretty
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah.
But have you had experiences where you've had to deal with um, negative spirits or demons?
Well, we've had some early on. We had some demon problems that came about, and well, nowadays everybody wants to go immediately to demon, so they're immediately on the demon page to start with. But back then, you had to, even the Catholic Church, you had to go through a progression to prove you had a demon to start with before they'd do anything about it. We had a good relationship with the Catholic Church. I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Presbyterian, but the exorcist that we had for the diocese here recognized our group. And if we called him and told him that we had a demon, he went and he took care of it. So, if we had determined it was demonic, we would call him, he would take care of it. And so we didn't go face demons ourselves. We do have one that's kind of ongoing now. We're not 100% sure what we have going on yet with it. It's been going on for some time. And one of the members in our group has had had a demonic experience, and she was attacked by a demon for over 3 years before she was able to defeat it. So anyway, they can be long-term sort of things. And we do have one going right now. We're not real sure what it is. And I'm leaning right now a little bit to voodoo. I don't have anybody in my group that's a voodoo expert, so I can't determine that it's voodoo for sure. The client did express that one day she woke up and her hair had been cut. So hair had been removed. And so that is something that the voodoo people do. So I'm thinking that she might have a voodoo curse. So I had talked to one of the witches that we work with a lot, and she has a sister that's supposed to be voodoo that she was going to put me in touch with, but for some reason her sister's not been willing to help us out. And I contacted a priestess in New Orleans who's listed on the internet, and she has turned, when I sent a contact email to her, I haven't heard back from her. That's been over a month ago. So
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do. And the other possibility is the lady's, the cheese is slid off her curry and the elevator doesn't go to the top. So you've got a wide range of possibilities.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of creepy when you don't know what you're really dealing with, and you've got several possibilities going on there.
That also is what creates fear, and I think that's part of what we were talking about earlier. A lot of people don't want to be associated with paranormal. It's lack of knowledge about the paranormal. It's lack of information about it. So they're in fear. And that's the way it is with voodoo and stuff. I think it's more people fear it than understand it. I certainly don't understand it, but I'm going to before long.
Right. Yeah. And even like when you get into things like natural protections and so forth like that, and and other things, grounding and centering and all that stuff, there's a tendency for that to fall under the realm of witchcraft.
Yes.
And I've had several people tell me, so, well, I'm a Christian, so I don't do these things and so forth. And one of the first things that I asked them is, where do you think the herbs and the crystals and so forth came from? If you believe they were created by God, it's the same thing as the food that you eat and the natural healing processes and so forth, using calamine to calm you, and and using ginger for pain relief and so forth. These things were put here for a reason, and by deity for a reason. I mean, they're not just hanging out here to be pretty,
Yeah.
And if they have qualities that you can use, again, for protection or healing, or or a plethora of other reasons, then using them is not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people get very confused. There's a couple of schools of one they call granny magic, and another one, Appalachian magic, that is very folk oriented. You're smiling. You recognize those terms really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The and then of course hoodoo, which is
Similar to voodoo.
Yeah, it's a combination of it. That comes from the hills for sure. It's a combination of voodoo and and conjure, southern conjure. And what people don't understand is back in the day in the mountain areas, these guys would get together. The black folks would get together with the white folks, and they would discuss what they would see each other doing these different things, and they would discuss what they were doing and how to do these things. And and this is where hoodoo came into being. Was the kind of the mixture of the two coming together and people creating this. So when I tell people that I pretty much refer to myself as Christo-pagan, they kind of look at me with a funny look on their face.
That's a good term. I like that term, Christo-pagan.
Here's the thing. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
The thing is if you believe that all things are created by God, and they're created for the purpose of like I said, food, healing, that sort of thing, then again, having fear of using those things seems a little odd to me.
Let me write that down before I forget it.
Christo-pagan. And and a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean? Well, because first of all, I believe that God is both male and female in characteristic. There's God the Father, who is the provider, the creator, and God the Mother, who is the nurturer. They're again part of the co-creation process. And people are like, well, God is spirit. Well, of course God is spirit. And God, when the whole point of man being created was God creating man in their image, both male and female. So when you look at things in that perspective and so forth, I get really, I don't want to say frustrated, but it gets very interesting to me how, like you say, everybody jumps on the demon wagon all the time with everything. Everything is a demon. It's like Sasquatch is a Nephilim. All ghosts are demons. It's like, really? Seriously? We're just going to blanket term everything? What do you, when you guys are approached and you get somebody's coming to you and going, John, I got a problem and I need for you guys to check this out, how do you go about vetting and not just vetting, but how do you go about determining, which cases do you want to take on and which ones do you want to pass on?
In general, we normally take everything that comes our way. We do something with it. Let me say that. Part of our first contact with them, if they contact us either on the internet or they call one of our phone numbers or they email us or whatever, Uh, we send out a inquiry to them, what we call our intake form. It's over 3 pages long. We have a bunch of questions on this thing, which helps us determine what they really have going on. It also asks specific questions about a number of things. So, and what we find is that when people start filling this form out, they remember, I have that, and that's something they wouldn't have told us if we didn't go through this form. So we depend on this form 100%. Not only that, but we do ask them to list any medications they're on, or if they're been diagnosed with anything, or if they're seeing any doctors for any things. So all these questions are on there, so that we can start to zero in on what really needs to be done. And we haven't really had to pass any of these things off to somebody else or find somebody else to do it. First off, in a lot of cases, I don't know anybody better qualified than we are. And at the same time, we work hard to try to find answers. And I know we do. So there are times when I know that we haven't satisfied some people. I'm sure, regardless if you've done any cases at all, there are some people that are not going to be happy with you. Hey, it's part of life. There are people that you've done business with that you're not happy with, and there are people I've done business with that I'm not happy with. So, that's part of life. But at the same time, we do put our best foot forward. We do try. And sometimes we fail, but we do the best we can.
So what are some of the things that are misidentified at times?
Well, sometimes, let's say it's hard to identify whether somebody's schizophrenic. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure schizophrenia exists. To be honest with you, I've started to think that it might be possession in all the cases. And so I'm thinking that, in fact, my daughter that I talked to you about is a psychologist. So she has a practice, and I've discussed this with her a number of times, and she's kind of telling me that the field is looking at coming to that conclusion too, that a lot of these people are being misdiagnosed, and it's really a possession by a spirit or something, and not. And it could be a possession by a person even, as we learn more about the brain and how it operates, we're finding that people can communicate telepathically and things like that. And so you've got influences coming to you. And if you can't realize that there's influences acting on you,
right,
you can't isolate the problem. And I've been in cases where I swear people were mind vampires. You go in and they drain you immediately. You can't think. You can't do anything. You immediately get tired. You're exhausted. And you leave the room with space and you're fine. But while you're in their presence, you can tell you'll eventually learn who they are, because you eliminate who you're in the room with, and you find out who that person is.
Real quick.
Yeah. But it takes a little work, a little time.
Yeah. So when I say, what are some things that get misidentified? Like, commonly, especially in older houses, you've got loose boards, you've got plumbing issues that cause strange noises.
Yeah.
Animals in the attic, that kind of thing. There's a lot of different things that can get misidentified as something paranormal. That's actually very normal.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories ever, my grandma lived in an old house. It was an old farmhouse that was ancient, and they had, I forget if it was one of the pipes in the bathroom. It was something in the back, toward the back of the house, that every once in a while, whenever they would use that back bathroom, it would make this god awful groaning noise. And it used to, like when I was a kid, that used to scare the crap out of me every time. And, and of course my grandma would be like, that's that haint back there. You got to be careful going back there.
My grandmother would say it was bloody bones.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. She loved to talk about the haints in the house. And or like I say, you got creaky, house settling and so forth, and there pops and knocks.
Sure.
And stuff like that, or things that create fake shadows and stuff like that. And one of my favorite things is a guy took a picture of the shadow that was on his wall. This bird had flown in just the right way. The sun was coming through the window in just the right way. Yeah, to have the shadow of this bird project on his wall to the point where it looked kind of weird. And I took a really good look at that after a few minutes, and I realized part of that looked like a wing. And I started looking at it deeper and deeper. I was like, dude, you just took a picture of a bird shadow. So there's several things that get misidentified.
Sure.
I have to agree with you about the schizophrenia thing. One of the other things that that becomes an issue sometimes, and you were talking about, it's interesting you brought up that people can possess other people. The first documented case of possession in America is one called the Wasika Wonder. And go back and investigate that story. It's very interesting because the one girl was born very gifted. She had some crazy experiences. The doctors finally convinced her parents to put her in an institution. She died in the institution.
Oh, fantastic.
And then this other girl was born, started having the same symptoms of things and so forth, the same types of things going on. And she even got to the point where she was communicating with two of her older siblings who had passed at birth or before birth. And she would introduce herself as different people even. Like at the one point, she was introducing herself as this German lady. Mm-hmm. At one point, she was introducing herself as this young little boy. Well, eventually, she introduced herself as this girl who had passed in the asylum.
Uh-huh.
And this girl's parents lived in the same town with this girl and her family. Mm-hmm. And they met this little girl and invited her to come live with them for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And so the story goes that eventually, like she was going to this child's friends' houses. She would go through the house and identify things that this little girl used to play with and mm-hmm. different rooms in the house. I mean, like, the parents were convinced that this was their daughter.
Yeah.
100%. And, and eventually the girl said, hey, the young girl that she had possessed said her spirit was healed, that she would be leaving soon, and the other girl would be coming back to her own body. And of course, that came to pass. Mm-hmm. But if you do the research on it, the Wasika Wonder, Wasika, Illinois is a tiny little town between Danville, Illinois, and Chicago. It's creepy as crap to go through, too. It's a very scary little town.
I've been through a few scary little towns that I didn't even want to stop in.
No
They were
doubt.
scary,
Yeah. Waseca's kind of like that. It's kind of one of the, it's like you just want to keep driving real
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
to get to the other side. Yeah. Um, when you, so you, the questionnaire, I like that idea because, it's like people, when we used to I used to do UFO investigation with somebody and we would send them a questionnaire too, you know, to, that adds several things that you went through and, ask specific questions, sort of like you're talking about medications and that sort of thing. Cause, you get into some of that. It's like, people who are diabetic, if they're, can start having hallucinations and so
Right,
forth,
right.
and stuff like that. So you got to be careful about some of that.
Yes, that's right. And you can't reveal it. It's confidential information.
Right, right.
Uh, Also, after we've had the questionnaire, another step that we try to take is that we have our case manager go over that intake form with the customer or the client, and it's videotaped at the time we do it. And one of the reasons is we're trying to nail the story down. And then if we notice that the story keeps expanding, we're going to have an issue. So, or it keeps changing. So,
Mhm.
we know that there's something wrong. So we try to nail everything down at the front so that we know what we're looking for and that it shouldn't be changing as we progress with our investigation. Unless we have new things happening as we go.
Yeah, that can definitely be the case sometimes. So you became a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like to walk in and say, "Hey, I'm here. I want to do a nonprofit paranormal organization"?
It was really easy. I did it with LegalZoom, and all it cost was money. They sent me some paperwork. I filled out the paperwork. They sent it. They prepared the thing from the information that they collected from me. File all the paperwork. File it with the state of Texas. Everything went. File it with the IRS. Next thing I'm getting, it took about 3 months, and then I started getting the papers of the corporation and our IRS status and our E&I number.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Do you have a board of directors and so
Yes, we
forth for
do.
that?
We
Okay.
do.
Good deal. Yeah. I know a little bit about not for profit because it was part of a ministry at one point. Um, and it can be interesting. There's a lot of legalities involved in it.
Yes, there are.
But there are also a lot of legalities that protect you in the
Yes,
process of all
it
of it.
does. And we do carry $1 million, liability insurance policy too. So.
Wow. Good deal. Good deal. And then, so you rely solely on donations. And
Pretty much. And right now, I'm the biggest donor.
right, right. Yeah, you were saying that a lot of the
Yeah,
funding comes out of
yeah.
your own pocket.
Well, a lot of the companies that we have talked to about funding, they don't like to go with a first year nonprofit. And so we're in our second year now. So we should find that they are more receptive to us having gotten through the first year. So anyway, hopefully this year is going to be better for us than the year last year was.
Definitely, it's good to to have those resources. You're always welcome to post stuff on they're in the Magical Journey group and so
Okay,
forth.
thank you.
Um, to to get people to help out. Um, always feel free to use our resources to promote your cause, because I believe me, I get it when it comes to the financial aspect. A lot of um, the cost to perform this work, to keep the podcast going and all that, all comes out of my pocket. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's quite
You know,
expensive. Quite expensive.
it can be, and then, when you get into like the bulk of my expense is all technology.
Yeah.
This platform, Canva, a lot of the things that I use, you know,
Adobe,
yeah, a lot of the things that I use to,
Microsoft.
oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then the equipment,
Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know, and you guys' equipment, like all those cameras and everything, those are some pretty expensive toys.
Yeah, they are, and they get broken. I've
Oh
broken
yeah.
a number of them, and had to replace them. So uh, it, it it it's not intentional, and sometimes the spirits help.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's it's one of
Oh
those things.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've seen them blow up flashlights and stuff like that
Yeah,
before, in cameras.
yeah,
Uh, you say you use infrared cameras a lot too,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so forth.
Well, yeah, flare. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you use night vision and stuff
We
as
have
well?
used night vision, and sometimes we use a laser grid. We got a laser grid a nice laser grid that we can lay out. We have everything we need. In fact, to be honest with you, yeah, if we're going old school, I'm real good with dowsing rods. I can
Mhm.
go out there with dowsing rods and my cell phone, and I can put on a pretty good investigation, just with that. Except that I like to carry my cart because I got spare batteries, I got my cameras, I got
Mhm.
anointing oil that's been blessed, I've got holy water. All the other stuff's on the cart. So once I unload that out, we've got everything we need there. So
Yeah, yeah, that comes in handy, I imagine. Yeah,
it
having all
does.
that, being able to get all your equipment together like that. It's funny you talk about like anointing oils and so forth. Yeah, um, I used to carry those on occasion when I would go to different places, especially if it was something that I felt was a not a good energy.
Yeah.
Uh,
We try to bless. One of my members is pastor.
mhm,
So if we have one like that, we can actually do a baptism. We can anoint them with oil and, go seal the mirrors and all the glass windows and the doors and stuff with oil and that sort of thing too. Yeah.
Somebody brought up something very important about mirrors last night in a podcast that I was in before I had my live. They were talking about like the antique mirrors, a lot of them, they used actual silver in the backing of them.
Yes. They
And
turn black. Some of those turn black as the silver oxidizes, it turns black. So you can tell that there's generally some
yeah,
black in the background. So you can tell those are silver mirrors.
yeah. The interesting thing about that is silver is actually a protectant.
Mhm.
So, where the modern mirrors can be used more as a portal, so to say. Um, the antique mirrors, not necessarily so.
Yet at the same time, back even with those, people would cover them when somebody died.
Oh
That was
yeah,
part of
yeah.
the funeral process.
That's a very Jewish thing
Yes, it is
too.
very Jewish. Yeah.
To cover the, I'll never forget. I can't remember the name the movie that I watched the one time. The one character was Jewish, and he said, the one guy looks at him and goes, "Why are all the mirrors covered?" And he said, "Because so that we can't see the pain in our faces." And he said, "Why is everybody sitting on boxes?" He says, "So there'll be pain in our faces." um, yeah, it's like, but it is very much tradition. And of course, the whole thing about breaking a mirror being 7 years bad luck and so forth. Um, it, the there's so many of those things that comes into play when it comes to uh, dealing with some of these cases. It's like uh, spirits. You're talking about spirits blowing up equipment or helping break equipment and so forth. I've seen that a few times where they've destroyed phones that were being used for
Yeah,
different things and stuff
yeah.
like that.
And that phone never worked again, ever.
Yeah. Or they drain the battery out of things. I always find that interesting when they
Yeah.
drain the batteries. Um, I've had them, drain the battery from several things. I've got a K2 meter that doesn't work anymore because of, I guess one got a hold of it and didn't like it. No idea.
Okay.
And of course they love to tear up the cat balls. You were talking about the dowsing rods. One of the things that I've seen people do with them from time to time is one guy put one, he inserted in an old candle and would have say, if you're here, can you move this dowsing rod or whatever? And the dowsing rod would start moving back and forth or whatever, just by itself. And he wasn't touching it. It was actually like anchored into a candle, which I found interesting. Is that your favorite piece of equipment? What is your favorite piece of equipment to use?
It's one of my first pieces of equipment. I'm very good with them. I have located lost graves, buried tombstones, different things like that with them. If there's something present, as soon as I pick them up, I can tell. I don't even have to ask a question. I can feel it in the rods. Now, all mine are handmade. I started out with mine. I used coat hangers to start with, and actually, I've got a video out on how to make your own dowsing rods with coat hangers.
Oh, wow.
I show you how to use them, how to hold them in your hand, because if you balance it over your finger and it's just resting on your palm, you can see. And especially if you keep your hands where it's tilted downward to a slight angle, it takes force to push them up. And mine always cross this way. Now, sometimes some people go outside. I don't understand why theirs go outside. Mine always go to the inside. But when we were teaching our classes at those cemeteries, the dowsing rods was one of the first tools we would teach because anybody can use them. And once they feel that power in the dowsing rods, they're believers. That was one of the things I like to do because that was something that would convince somebody that needed convincing to start with, that was a little skeptical. Once you've had those dowsing rods working in your hands, skepticism is out the window.
Yeah. I'm a fan of using the pendulum, which has kind of a pull like that to it too.
My daughter uses pendulum. Yeah.
And that can be downright interesting sometimes. Using the pendulum, some of the things that I have one pendulum board that's set up. It's set up circular and with the alphabet and numbers around it.
Like the Ouija board, okay.
Yeah, and you got to be careful how you use them, of course. But I've used those a couple of times, in communicating with spirits, and sometimes it's surprisingly accurate. Like I said, you just got to know how to open and close. That's
we had an investigation in Gainesville, Texas, that we had 3 ladies. There was Hill House Manor, and we had 3 ladies doing pendulums, and they were getting simultaneous results doing exactly the same thing. And so one was, they were all verifying each other, really. It was amazing.
So one of the things I always like to ask people who are investigators, because I always find their answers very interesting, is what is your opinion on the work of Ed and
Lorraine?
and Lorraine Warren.
Warren. Well, some of their work was quite good,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of a fan of theirs. There were some things that occurred over time that I didn't agree with, totally. But at the same time, hey, people are people, and personalities are personalities, and maybe it was a personality thing rather than a skill thing. You never can tell why you might react to a person the way you do, or something. It could be anything. So maybe it was just me, but there were some things I didn't like about them. But at the same time, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. They are very recognized. They are very qualified. They did some fantastic work. I can't say enough. And actually, the foundation that they started, the Warren Foundation, is still in existence, and it's doing good work. And we worked with them on one occasion. We've chatted with them on
Oh, wow.
a couple of times. So, hey, I take my hat off to them.
I was always very impressed, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a couple of I followed their work on the Amityville case. Lorraine's response when somebody asked her opinion on that house, and she said it was pure evil. Of course, again, you go back though, and you look at the evidence on that case, and especially the testimony of the one child, the Lutz child, her Kathy's middle son, flat out came out and said, the only thing that the movie and the book got right was that we moved into the house and we left the house.
Yeah.
But then there's that famous picture that was taken I think it was taken during the Warren investigation of the little boy, peeking around the corner of the door. That's incredibly. The picture is very clear, and it's incredibly convincing. Their work at the Conjure House, of course, is just probably some of the most interesting documentation I've seen to date. And Lorraine came off as a very, I gotta tell you, she interviewed very well. I thought she was a great interviewer. She had a great personality.
Mm-hmm.
So I always had a lot of respect for her in that sense, and so yeah, it's as far as old school investigators go. I definitely feel like she was a very gifted, talented person.
And you have to give them credit, because back then they didn't have the equipment we've got today, and
right.
So they did some fantastic work, but it was hard work then.
Right. Oh yeah, because what they had those reel-to-reel tape recorders, and
Right.
And maybe a camera if they were lucky or two.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, we got the laser grids, which is really fun.
And the tri-field meters.
all the meters, all the things.
Yeah.
We've got all these fancy toys to play with.
Cat balls, we got all that.
Cat balls,
things they didn't have.
Yeah. One of the things that was an interesting manifestation at the house that I lived in Hermitage is the candles around my altar. The flames would turn violet color.
Okay.
And to date, I've never had that happen here at where I'm at now.
Okay.
But I've never seen that manifest any other place like that, where the candle flames would turn violet color.
Wow.
But it is very interesting. this field, is one that can be very rewarding and very frustrating at the same time. Uh, depending on the results, depending on what your end game goal is, it can be, it can definitely be a game that you can either win big or lose horrifically. And the guys who are wanting you to clear their house, and it's sometimes that's a challenge. I've talked to one person who she specializes in crossing people over, which that's a controversy I don't even want to talk about right now.
Okay.
Well, because here's the thing: there are people that are for it or against it.
Yeah.
I don't know where you stand with it. But anyway, she was talking about about children, the spirits of children, and how interesting they are to work with, because they're like, oh, I can do anything now and nobody can really stop me. I can go to Disneyland and hang out and all kinds of, it's like child spirits are probably one of the hardest ones to work with in that sense. And because they are so curious and they are so free at that point. But so with all that, I mean, so I'm just going to put it out there that, so what is your thought on crossing over?
Okay. Well, let me back up while I got it on my mind, since you were talking about child spirits. One of the things we did at Hill House Manor was we did run into some children's spirits there. And I did not have any flour or any powders with me at the time, or a piece of plastic to put it on. So we put some coffee creamer on the floor. And then we put some toys, boys, balls, trucks, different things on the thing. And we left the camera there. And the next morning we had fingerprints. We had tracks in the powder where the toys had been rolled and moved and stuff. So it was a very interesting experiment that we did. And I think everybody should have a toy kit that they carry with them whenever they go on an investigation, especially if they know children are going to be involved. Now then, where do I stand on crossing spirits over, or where do I think the paranormal world ought to be? First off, a lot of spirits don't want to be crossed. Some of them are here because they don't want to go face their maker. Some of them have unfinished business. I think we should honor that. At the same time, when we go to some of these places, I know some of the places, Waverly Hills, for instance, they don't want you crossing anybody over. Their business is to, have spirits there that you can come communicate with, talk with, and everything. And actually, some of those spirits, I'm not sure, are totally, they're not well. I mean, they went to it was a sanitarium, they're not totally well. Do they need to be punished? No. Should they be crossed over? I think that if they wanted to be crossed over, we might ought to do it. But at the same time, the sanitarium says, hey, this is our business. This is how we make a living. And if you cross them over, there won't be anybody here for you to come visit later. They got a point. And so they don't need to let anybody in that's going to do that. So I think that if you agree with the terms of what they're telling you and you go there to do an investigation, that you need to abide by it and not go wildly out on your own, because then you give paranormal investigators a bad name. Now, if you're at a public place and there's a spirit there, or a cemetery and there's a spirit there, there's nobody that you need to get permission from to cross these people over. And they want to be crossed over. You've confirmed with them that they want to be crossed. I say cross them. there's no point in keeping them from heaven if that's where they want to go, or wherever they're going to. And some of them may be crossing and not going there, you know?
Right,
Who knows?
right. Yeah. There's a time and place.
Yeah.
There's a time and place. And, I mean, there's some people that they literally make a living out of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so let me ask you this, as far as final thoughts and so forth on paranormal investigation, on your organization and so forth. What would you leave us with today?
Oh, I don't know what you're asking exactly.
Well, final thoughts on let's go with the final thoughts on the paranormal first. What are some things that you have learned along the way that you would like to leave with us today about the paranormal?
Well, I guess my first thought would be that if somebody is afraid of the paranormal, that you really, what you're saying is, I need to learn more. I need to understand it better. I need more information. I need more education, because I think that once you understand it, you know it, you're comfortable with it, and you don't have a fear. You know how to protect yourself. You know how to take care of everything. There's no reason to be afraid. I would get a concealed handgun license if I were you. I'm afraid of the living, not the dead, you know? And so some of the places I have been, you needed the handgun. That's just the simple truth. And it was the living that we needed to fear, not the paranormal. So, hey, that would be one of my final thoughts. I am concealed carry handgun licensed, though.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, some of the places I've been to are, you're right, the living are way scarier.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when it comes to your organization, I'm sure part of the the message there is, help us out, guys, help a brother out.
Sure, we would love donations. If you have funds and you would like to donate them to a paranormal cause, we are more than willing to accept, and we'd certainly give you a receipt for your donation. If you would like a receipt, just let us know. And you can donate to us on Cash App, PayPal. Actually, if you go to our term of the day, there's a little QR code on the bottom right-hand part. That'll take you to our dot card. Everything's listed there. All of our sites, all of our places where we take funds, where you can make donations, stuff, all listed on that business card. So yeah, if y'all want to do that, find one of our terms of the day and hit that QR code or go to our website. It's on our websites too.
I still love those terms of the day. I really do. I get excited.
we get a lot of comments on it, and people love it. And there are people, and all of a sudden, and that one that I did the other day, I don't know if I should even mention that. Somebody gave it to me as pistified, where you're pissed off and amazed by the stupidity of people, so you're pistified. I have so many people laugh about that, and I felt this way the other day, so many of them say, and every time I post it, somebody says something about it, and lots of people are following it. And actually, since we quit posting it on the 140 sites we were posting it on, getting slapped by Facebook, some of the people that were really making a lot of comments are coming to our site and looking at it too. And then, of course, you got Pamela putting it on yours. So.
Oh yeah. Pamela, I gotta tell you, Pam is such amazing moderator. She's a great friend, very supportive of the cause, and she loves posting those on a daily basis. She really does. I'm going to take it down a notch here and roll us out for the day. But if you will hang back for a moment off stage, and I want to touch base with you on a couple of things before I let you go today.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Daniel.
Awesome. Thank you for showing up and for being on and giving us a lot of good information.
Well, I hope so.
Always. All right, guys, there you have it. I gotta tell you, I feel very enlightened about some things now that I didn't think about before. And I hope you did too. Do not forget to join us each Tuesday for the Tuesday drop, each Thursday for the Paranormal Files, and each Friday for the live. And do not forget magicaljourney.com. Also, please let me know what you thought about the show in the comments below. Be careful. Don't leave me nasty love letters. I don't like the nasty love letters. Don't do that to me. Also, like, share, and of course, if you have not subscribed to my channel, shame on you. Please go subscribe. And may your journey always be magical.
I've waited for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. We must have been something in our past life.